he's got this quite romantic poem about poetry in motion. And he wrote it about what I'm going to talk about was a trip we took together back in 1999 to Kanab from Spanish Fork. But I disagreed with him all these years since, because I tell him he's lying about that ride to Kanab, and I have the real story about it. So this is my ride to Kanab. I'm sure most of you know where it is. Anyway, it was the summer of '99 when I heard from a friend of mine that old Paul Bliss was taking, he said, a herd of horses, about 50 head, from Salem by Spanish Fork to Kanab. Now, 6 days wouldn't be that bad, but 290 miles, actually, the time you do all of this and that, it's probably 500 miles in just 6 days. And I thought, well, that's no way for this old cowboy to play. And I thought, honey, oh, trout, vapor lock. Oh, I thought he's dumber than a bat, and wonder what he had for brains underneath his hat. Thank you, dear. And you know what? It took me 2 weeks to convince him to take me. So I started to work my horse. I'd taken 2 of them, of course, and I'd ride the one and lead the other at a fast trot and sometimes at a canter. And I'd done this day after day till I figured I was tougher than old Abe. Well, at last come the day when we got underway, and we took him out of this big old pen as fast as, well, I'm going to have to back up. It's going to take 50 head of horses to Kanab. I forgot that. So anyway, it come the day we took him out of this old pen as fast as we can handle them and sent him down the road at a fast trot. That's okay. I thought it wouldn't be too long till we got to our first trot. Trot, 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 trot. If you ever tried to herd horses or move horses like that, it takes about 3 guys in front on horses to keep them back because they want to go around you. And it takes that many more along the sides and in the back to really do a good job. But there's only 5 or 6 of us that did it. Trot, 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 trot. Oh, and they drive better. They're worse than cattle when you drive them, because as soon as you start walking them, they want to wander off and graze. Trot, 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 trot. Oh, for miles we did trot till we finally got to our first stop. Now, it was about 5 miles down the road, and by then I felt like a run-over toad. Well, that stop didn't last long till we was back on the trail like when we'd begun. Trot, trot, trot. Now, our first real stop was Mona, where we stopped to eat lunch. And it's there we met Cookie, and I had a hunch that we was in for a surprise if we thought we'd get fed, because all they fed was peanut butter on old dry bread. Man. Excuse me, this chucking up with, I'm over hay, that's what the trouble is. Why, that old S of a B who bragged on his food was nothing but BS and basil, and that wasn't good. Why, he even put basil in the oatmeal he served us on toast. Well, the lunch was soon over, and fresh horses we'd ride. And when Pulse bucked him off, all that hurt was his pride. Then back on the trail, trot, 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 trot. For miles we did trot, till we finally got to our first night's stop. And man, was I tired. And the worst thing of all was the hurt in my chest. In fact, it was my breast. My poor little boobies were sorer than sin. And it hurt like heck when my shirt touched them. And I was about to quit that old ride, but I had too much of that old cowboy pride. And if he'd have been there, I could just hear my dad. He'd looked right at me and said, "Cowboy up there, lad." So I decided to stay. Well, now the thing that saved me was we had to stay and shoe all those nags the very next day. Now, I tried to tell him, you cannot drive a herd of horses barefooted for 300 miles. No way. There's blood all, you could follow our trail in blood. So we had to stay and shoe all those nags the very next day. Well, that night after supper, can't remember what we had. It wasn't very good. In fact, it was so bad that the dog wouldn't eat it. It kind of looked like a cow pie and smelled like horse stuff. Well, a little bit later, Paul's wife Stacy saw me moping around, my shoulders hunched over, my chin on the ground. "You got some kind of a problem? Do you hurt in the chest?" I said, "I sure do, but how did you guess?" Well, a few minutes later, she handed me a bra. This great big white one, the biggest one I'd ever saw. So now everyone knew where I was hurting so bad as we took to the trail and headed on for Kanab. Now, I don't know how I done it, but I made it all the way to Kanab in only 6 days. Well, a couple of weeks later at a party one night, Stacy gave me another one that fit me just right. This cute little black one with a rose sewn on right here. Much too pretty for this old cowboy to wear. But from now on, I'll be ready to make that long ride. A sports bra I'll be wearing right next to my hide.